Shalom. Name's Joseph. I'm a Jewish convert, and I want to talk about strange coincidences I seem to keep reliving. Many of you read the Bible or the Tanakh, read about your holy book. I don't understand why people don't really understand it. But one thing that's different is, I've lived a lot of the same words that people give Jesus credit to, which doesn't seem unusual, but when you can get like 8, there was a mathematician that said just for Jesus to do 8 would be 1 in 100 trillion. So it seems pretty rare that even someone could do something as simple as Isaiah 7:14. It's where everybody gets the young woman has a son and names his son, or they call him Emmanuel. That is a prime example of exactly one of the things that I've done. That was an easy one. It wasn't even planned. It was so weird just how it manifests. The weirdest one was Ezekiel 37, which makes that so rare. First, I was born with the right name. It just happens to be mentioned in the book. So I'm a Joseph who converted to Judaism. So now you have Joseph and Judah combined into one. Then you get to the interesting part of when I was 9, I had a bone disease called osteomyelitis. So they just cut my dead bones off. I mean, it's bad. It would have killed me if they didn't cut them off. So it was life over limb. Pretty terrible. Pretty terrible. Doctors told me I was crippled, was never going to get to be like a normal kid. Run, walking, playing. I was very much the living embodiment of the movie Forrest Gump, walking around with a stick leg. I didn't have the metal brace, but my leg was all taped up and bandaged. Took me less than 2 years to heal myself. More than a year, I think I was pretty bad for a year. It's pretty tough. But I grew new bones back, new flesh back, and new tendons back, and I got a second knee from God. I mean, sounds like the embodiment of some kind of resurrection to me, which that's just another unusual, but many of the circumstances that keep the following me or circling me. So I just keep looking into it. I study religion a lot. I rather enjoy a little bit of an argument because I keep living the stories of, like a one-off. So, and I'd have to say that, yeah, sometimes I hear somebody talking to me. So I always have a third influence. And that's difficult to manage sometimes, trying to hear 3 people talk a lot. So sometimes my communication's off a little bit. Trying to translate from one to the other. But yeah, there's so many things I want to talk about. And not sure if the world's ready, really, but well, this looks like the end to me. The beginning of it. The food wars that are coming. volcanoes. We're going to see a repeat of 536 AD, the beginning of the Justinian plague, the bubonic plague. It was just all kind of a rehashing of that through a long time. But the beginning of the Justinian plague started because of volcanoes blocking the sun out. 18 months worth of winter, can't grow food no more. Panic sets in, people start buying, start hoarding, governments will start getting into it. And once the governments stop allowing their food to be sold, it's just, that's when everybody gets scared, really. The whole world. I mean, what do you do when you can't get enough food? Rich people get lucky for a long time, until, once the mass panic sets in, it's just not going to go very well for a lot of people. If they come back, it's just, so many things depending on the good sun and good rain to show up. We've kind of grown weak and everybody wanting to be happy, which we all deserve happiness, but we kind of forgot how to raise people that can tell the difference between right and wrong. Maybe we need to calm down the angry religion part, Why don't you do a test, Show me if your God's real. Let's do it. Like Elijah did, I'll stand there. Let's see who he shows up for or who doesn't, Let's put religion to the test. Or maybe perhaps people should stop killing over it, People have the right to worship freely and peacefully, without hurting others. There seems to be a great misunderstanding there going on, between the three Abrahamic religions. Christians are great people. We all can push names around. I don't have anything bad to say about Christians. Don't know very many Muslims, but I understand the concept of being mistreated. Seems there's a lot of hate focused between Jews and Muslims primarily. I don't know if that's like homegrown hate. We see it on the news. Israel deserves the right to be free and live in safety. They deserve the right to own the Temple Mount. The Islamic world's failure to recognize Jerusalem as the never-ending, eternal capital of Jews, is a great failure. And Muslims are, the Torah says the Muslims will be a great people. So I would like to say that I do believe, the Muslims have created the greatest city of worship in the world, the history of the world so far. So far. It's amazing. It's not for everybody, though. So, I value a lot of similarities between Judaism and Islam. There's even similarities between all three of them, It seems like God gave three choices to find a peaceful way, and we still can't. But one of the most Jewish things you can do is you read your books and you just read how they don't get along and they fight amongst each other. So I don't know what's more Jewish except for fighting your brothers. So maybe we could just settle down a little bit, Eventually they talk about somebody coming and showing some really cool stuff. So let's have some tests or try some stuff. Just get a little outside the box, Get some permission from the Saudi Arabia. Let's try to bring like 70,000 Jews over there to Mount Jabal laws, For some people say the real Mount Sinai seems to be pretty good, for not knowing. There's a few places, but heck, let's try them all. Let's see if God will show up for a religion or somebody. It just sounds like fun, Let's create a new game show. Who's the Messiah? There's got to be 1 million people walking around the world talking that I'm Jesus. I'm the Mahdi. I'm Mashiach, So let's try to understand what this is because personally, some people call it a mental disease, which, like a Jerusalem syndrome or Messiah syndrome. And yeah, I believe it is. But there's also a lost art of communicating with the Creator that was lost. And somewhere between the craziness of these people thinking they know God or don't, and the real person who finally shows up someday, there's something there. So, I think it's time to put all the religions on the table. Just re-examine everything. I mean, Jesus was 100% Jewish, so I don't really see how anything that wants to use his name, wants to branch off and change what he was. He wasn't anything about that. But the shortcomings of Judaism is I'm blessed and you're not. I don't agree with that. My job as being Jewish is to share the blessing and teach right from wrong. I think that's what's, if you miss the mark on being a good parent, I mean, that's bad. That's basic instinct. And when people are losing basic instinct, nobody's perfect. We all fuck up a little bit, I guess. But, some people really mess up. So, you people who really, want to hurt kids and shit, that's just, you, I don't know what happened to you to put you in that situation. That's, that would be interesting to find out, the study of what puts people into situation, goes back to failure of families. So how do we rebuild family structure? And here in the World War II era, as the greatest era of Americans, it's sad to hear. So, I mean, our country's fucking strongest country that's ever existed in the history of humanity. So why aren't we the people also the greatest people or generation that's ever lived? So that tells you something. We're losing something. You see that through history, through all the great civilization kings. I don't know, get soft, spoiled, losing our way. Ultimately, it goes down to lack of understanding the human condition. You're a really smart animal. Congratulations. You still shit and piss like a dog. You may stand on 2 feet, but we need to maybe go back and work on the human self, human condition. Well, men and women is the greatest issue we have right now, understanding that. Men and women are definitely not equal, but they both deserve to be treated with fairness. Some things women can do better. Some things men can do better. But women kings, I just don't see it. God-given ability for a woman was to add numbers to the population. To be a nurturer. Some jobs, I mean, that's amazing. And there can be amazing women leaders because of, the compassion of, what some women are born with. So women are super amazing at everything. The most valuable thing any great man would have would be a great woman beside him. But something's changed. So I don't see religion as the greatest issue right now, but it's family and issues with men and women. It seems to be a breakdown of society almost. So, I admire Islam. Very harsh on a lot of stuff. And some of that, I really admired things of each of them because there's one God, there's one earth, and we're all humans. So God made us all. Sometimes when we hear Jewish people say, I'm blessed, kind of pisses me off. Especially before I was really Jewish. I was always born. I mean, I'm a bone grower. I know. I mean, God chose this body to regenerate human bones. I grew bones after I was born. After they was amputated, my bones died. They cut them off. Basically said, "I'm sorry, son. That's it. I'm sorry, son. Make sure infection didn't come back. It's horrible. It sucked a lot living like that, crippled, wheelchairs and hopping around. But gave me a never-ending liking of hospitals for that. Don't like hospitals for such a crazy situation I had to deal with when I was young. But let's have some tests and dial the insanity down. Let's get back to families being families, and let's have some serious talk about religions. Everybody wants to get mad, but let's just talk about the future. It's all changing pretty quick. In years, I guess. I would say this is, about the last week of this, the way we live now, before it all kind of falls apart. It's kind of scary. But I see a lot of how it's all going to unfold. So maybe, I spent my life looking for answers, and they just always been showed them and given them and seen it happen. So I guess, so I'll try to tell you guys maybe what you guys need to do to save yourself. So relax a little bit. Read the 10 Commandments, because in the new age to come, regardless of who you are or what your religion is, the 10 Commandments are for everyone who wants to live in the future. Just dial it down a little bit. I want to make the Jewish people better. Let's not get angry against them. Maybe I'm disappointed because my life's not fair, and the Jews say this is theirs, and I say this is mine. So how do we decide who's right or wrong? So people's going to have some major disagreements. So future's going to show, and your food is going to go away. Not 100%. There'll always be food, but they just won't be able to grow it for a while like they used to. So you got indoor growing, but very minimal to the massive amount that needs to grow outside under just the sun. So scary times are coming, and hope you all can find peace in that and live a good life. Try to do a mitzvah. It's something good. Make up for something bad, or pay it forward. I always like that. But that's pretty good. Pay it forward. So a lot of tension between Jewish people and Israelis, and I guess opinions of Israel versus the world. So I'd like to advise the world just to chill out a little bit, dial it down. Perhaps worry about the future of your own country when you don't have no food coming, because the food shortage is going to hit everybody. So relax. Maybe you need to pray a little bit more, because we all have heard about the tribulation, Jacob's trouble. In Islam they call the smoke. 10 major signs. you can see overlapping themes and very different themes, but smoke. It's a common theme. Smoke clouds of heaven. I mean, I don't know how nobody's seen this. This is a volcano issue. Earthquakes. Volcanoes are about the most devastating natural force there is on Earth. So, yeah. How can you not associate that with God's judgment when, like Yellowstone, they say humans didn't exist, probably didn't exist a million years ago, so who knows? It's above my pay grade on that, but, wow, man, I don't want to be here. Well, I do want to be here when Yellowstone erupts, because, a lot of people's going to need help, and I've been seeing this my whole life, so Scott and Larry got the rerun episodes going on of how to survive the future. So, get yourself a water filter. It's simple. You should already have something. Basic know-how. Because if your soul life is dependent on a faucet for life, if you have the opportunity, get a water filter. It's just one little step, because just simple things like that are going to be hard to find in a few years. All right. Well, God bless everybody. Have a great day.